Sachavachai namo namaha. Hai tosre dai, Hai hai Svasyacha Vishnu Bhakti Hare Sachavachai namo Jai Tulsi Maharani. We offer our most respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, just like desire trees, those who desire to everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls, God, unto come. Guru Vishya, we just did do a good job. Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihari Gopinana Malaba Yidibaro Dhagate Gopinana Malaba Yidibaro Dhagate Yasodanandana Rajajanuranjana Yasodanandana Rajajanuranjana Jambunatira Vanachade Yamuna Tira Vanachate Jai Radha Madhova Kunya Bihagate Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihagate Gopi Nana Malaba Girivada Dhagute Gopi Nana Malaba Girivada Dhagute Yasodhanandana Braja Janoranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Janoranjana Yamuna Tera Panachari Yamuna Tera Panachari Jaya Radhu Madhuva Kunda Vihati Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunda Vihati Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paravatikacharya Says there is such a Shrimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nandakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sidwaita Gadadha Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Srimati Lasidevi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurmani Pacharni Navishesha Sinyabadi Paschatra Deja Charni. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, 54th chapter, Text 2. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tan apatata alokya yadavanika utapa tatos tat sambuka rajan vispurja swa Danum Shi Te Tanapatata Lokya Yadavani Kayutapa Tatushtat Sammukha Rajan Purijaswa Danum Shite Tanapatata Lokya Yadavani Kayutapa Tatushtat Sammukha Rajan Vispurja Swadanum Site Tanapatatalokya Yadavani Kayutapa Latushtat Samukha Rajan Vispurjasva Danumshite. Anyone else? No. Tan, them. Apatata, in pursuit. Alokya, seen. Yadava Anika, of the Yadava army. Yuta, Pap, and the officers. Tashtu, stood. Tat, them. Samukha, directly facing. Rajan, O king. Parikshit. Vispuruja, twanging. It's onomatopoetic, which means it means and sounds like what it is. Twang. Swab, there. Danupshi, bows. Te, they. Translation. The commanders of the Yadava army, seeing the enemy racing to attack, turned to face them and stood firm, O king, twanging their bows. You can repeat. The commanders of the Yadava army, seeing the enemy racing to attack, turned to face them and stood firm, O king, twanging their bows. So there's no commentary by the followers of His Divine Grace of the Prabhupada, and I'm just going to read part of the whole of Jiva Goswami's commentary here. Those, Te, who were famous as commanders of the Yadava armies, who had gathered with Balaram previously in anticipation of a fight, faced the enemy. They drew their extraordinary small bows. So, there's not much to say about this verse, nor the next, and we'll go to the fourth verse eventually. Ashvaprishte gajaskande rato paste strakovita mamukchu shadavarshane mega adrishvapoyata. Mounted on the backs of horses, the shoulders
of elephants and the seats of chariots. The enemy kings, expert with weapons, rained down arrows upon the Yadus like clouds, pouring rain on mountains. So I'm just going to read Sanatana Goswami's commentary here. Seated on their chariots, Ratopashte, expert at war, Kovada, the enemy headed by Jarasandha released a shower of arrows. The arrows were spread among the warriors. The showers from horses, elephants, and chariots were progressively greater because of their size, because they were expert and they released showers of arrows as if they were clowns. So, same thing, just descriptive. So, text 4. Patyurmalam shara sarais chanam viksha sumajjama savrid savridmyakshat tadvaktram maya vivalalochana. Slender-waisted Rukmini, seeing her lord's army covered by torrents of arrows, shyly looked at his face with fear-stricken eyes. And again, we're just going to read Sanatana Goswami's commentary. Her waist, Sumajama, was bent due to meekness caused by shyness. Seeing directly Viksha, the army of her husband, covered with arrows, she developed tears of fear. Actually, it says tears, but it's tears of fear in her unsteady or agitated eyes. This was because she was the best of women, Sumajama. They were always timid. It's interesting. We read that again, which I'm not going to talk about today anyway, but it's just found it quite interesting. This is because she was the best of women. Sumajama, they were always timid. Take that for what it means. So seeing the armies covered with arrows, shyly she looked at Krishna's face, since she was the best of women or had an innocent gaze. So again, Omagana Timidanda Sha Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmiditam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurave Namaha. So what I want to talk about today was her fear, not her timidness, nor her sumajma, her thin waist. Sumajma means like a nice middle. That word is often used in the Bhagavatam, sumajma, in reference to a very attractive lady. So here we say that she is fearful, and you may question, why is Krishna putting her into a fearful condition? Because Krishna's supposed to protect us, free of fear. We're supposed to be free of fear. We like to have abhaya sattva samshuddhi, jnana yoga vyavastitahi. Yet we're continually experiencing not only fear. Of course, fear is one of the indirect or secondary rasas, but we're experiencing all these other secondary rasas too. Some of them which are quite pleasant, like laughter. I don't mind experiencing that one. Whoops. Gesundheit, God bless you. Hare Krishna. So, so laughter is quite pleasant, but a lot of them are not so pleasant, like dread, which is fear, and ghastliness. I mean, when I was young, I would like to experience things that were ghastly. You go to a horror movie and you see whatever, the axe murderer. But now ghastliness, and then of course then there's anger, and I just been thinking, what happened with Shanti? What happened with peace? Krishna says, without peace, there's no happiness. And we understand, Prabhupada gives the peace formula, Bhaktaram Jakatapasam Sarva Lokam Hedranam. One understands that Krishna is the proprietor, Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is your best friend, Bhaktaram Jakatapasam Sarva Lokam Hedranam. Suridam Sarva Bhutanam, your best friend. And then here's the present. What is it? Yatmamam Shantim Richati. One comes to peace. Yet there's no peace. And Rukmini here is experiencing this intense feeling. So why are these intense feelings, and some of which are not so pleasant, allowed? Why does Krishna allow the devotees to experience these things if he at the same time is always protecting the devotees who have knowledge, are abhaya sattva samshuddhi, jnana yoga vasati, are free of fear? Why is Krishna doing that? So one reason is that it actually helps a devotee focus more on Krishna. Just like when you're experiencing intense emotions, you're definitely not spaced out. Like because I don't do this, but if I were to yell at someone, "You rascal!" Okay, I don't think anyone's sleeping or spacing out at that particular point. They experience a little bit of... So it helps us function, of course, helps us function on Krishna. Just like sometimes I am a passenger in a car, and which means someone else is driving. And every time someone makes a move that I may perceive as being dangerous, or we're in a situation that I may perceive as being dangerous, I go, Hare Krishna. Otherwise, I'm just talking prajalpa. So for a neophyte devotee, this fear actually brings one to Krishna. And for a pure devotee, it actually sharpens one's relationships, helps one focus more on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so we see so many instances in Krishna's pastimes or his various expansions, avatars, pastimes, where there's a lot of fear there, dread, not only just fear, but dread, what happens, what's going to happen, or even concern, oh, Krishna's going to die. Like, of course, I always bring in Lord Ram's pastimes when I'm talking about things like this. Just like the story of when Lord Ram and Lakshman, they were hit with the Nag weapon. Nag means the snake weapon. Indrajit, Ravana's son, was firing, and these snakes enveloped, they covered their bodies, and there was no cure for this Nag weapon. And it was described that by the sunrise the next day, Ram and Lakshman, they were breathing less and less and less and less. And they're not going to survive. And so everybody is in complete anxiety and fear. And even this anxiety and fear covers up their knowledge, of course, Yogamaya, covers up their knowledge that Ram is Vishnu, he's Narayan. It's interesting, because when you're in fear, even your knowledge, your philosophical knowledge sort of like flees away. Like you see this, of course, also in when Arjuna was fearful before. He wasn't fearful for his own sake, but he was fearful for his extended family's sake. Like, we had this discussion many years ago with a devotee. Devotee said, well, Arjuna was afraid. And I said, Arjuna was not personally afraid, but Arjuna was afraid because, when you're identifying with a certain, let's say, family or community, then it's like your extended bodily consciousness. So you're afraid. I mean, just like if something happens here to one of the devotees, be very much afraid. But if something happens to another devotee, we pray, we're concerned about them. But someone who I know, someone I'm close to, there's much more fear. So Arjuna was actually experiencing fear, intense fear. Although it was apparent to him even before that Krishna was God. I mean, he basically needed it prove to him again that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna had to bring forth the universal form and so many arguments just to convince Arjuna that he's the Supreme, because this fear was covering him up. Or anyway, getting back to Ram and Lakshman, who are lying there, being enveloped with the Nag weapons, the snake weapons. So basically, they're so fearful, and finally, Hanuman, in order to save them, he goes and he gets Garuda, and Garuda comes back, and Garuda scares away or eats these snakes. And so that happened another time in the pastimes of Lord Ram. Lakshman was hit with the Shakti Shila, and he was supposed to die by the dawn of the next day. And then after that, we have Hanuman, who brings back the Sanjeevani to cure Lakshman. So you have so much fear in the Lord's past, so much dread. I mean, fear is one thing, but dread is actually even, I guess it would be considered much more intense than just ordinary fear, right? Dread, if you say, I'm afraid I'm not going to get any food today. Okay, so what? Or I dread starving to death. There's a difference between the two. Anyway, so, and then other times too, like when Krishna jumped into the Yamuna to chastise the Kaliya serpent, then the devotees were so fearful they were fainting out of fear. Fainting. And some of them were ready to jump in to save Krishna. And of course, Balaram, he wasn't fearful, as was described the other day, because he remembered that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the Trinavarta story. Isn't it amazing how Krishna's always putting his devotees into fearful condition? I mean, even Prabhupada, when he sent Tamal Krishna Maharaj out to buy the land in Mayapur, Prabhupada was fearful that something was going to happen to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So we find, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's pure devotees' pastimes. Another thing for the Ramayana, when Sita was kidnapped, you have Ram was experiencing intense fear, intense dread, of course, intense anger, and all these different symptoms. I wrote down all these different times. Demigods, when Varaha was fighting with Hiranyaksha. So many instances. I mean, we can go through so many different examples of this particular fear. So this fear actually brings the devotees closer to Krishna and enhances their relationship with Krishna. And if we experience fear in Krishna's service or anxiety, that enhances our relationship with Krishna. Even there was that story that Tamal Krishna Maharaj said to Prabhupada one time that I'm in so much anxiety, which is, just like some sort of fear. So I'm in so much anxiety that it's hard for me to hear my rounds. And Prabhupada said, yes, something like me too. I'm also experiencing that. So that this sort of fear, anxiety, to a certain extent, not to an unlimited extent, but to a certain extent, actually, even for someone who's just coming to Krishna consciousness, can be utilized to help them focus on Krishna. So as far as material fear is concerned, that doesn't help us focus on Krishna. That just helps us become more self-centered. And this material fear, according to the Bhagavatam, is there because of us seeing in a dualistic fashion. There's one verse that illustrates this that Prabhupada would often quote in this regard. It's from the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, text 37, and I think text 37. Very important verse. Prabhupada quoted it often in regard to fear, and I'm going to quote the verse. Zabhayam dvitiya viniveshata shat ishadapiktasya vipariyo smriti tanmayato buddha abhajet tam Pachai Kayesham Guru Deva Tatma. And actually, you can read the word by word synonyms. You don't have to repeat. Bhayam, again, the same word that's used in the verse today that Rukmini is experiencing. Bhayam means fear. And it's actually considered an anartha in this world. Spiritually, it's considered part of, it's an indirect or secondary ras, part enhances your relationship with Krishna. It's interesting how the anarthas, what the Vedas consider anarthas, unwanted things, are actually manifest in the spiritual realm to enhance one's relationship with Krishna. I mean, just like one of the anarthas is kama, right? Everyone knows what kama is. Kama means lust, or as Prabhupada said, Mr. Lust. There's also Mrs. Lust too, but anyway, Cupid. So that's manifest in terms of one's a transcendental kama, like this kamanuga devotees. Of course, that means devotees in the conjugal relationship. So that's sambandhanuga, kamanuga. So you have the same word even used, isn't it? Kama, krodha, madhamatsarya. All these different enemies, these anarthas, are actually there that enhance our relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world, not as anarthas, but in their original pure form, just like relationships. Whether you're Shanta, Dasha, Sakya, Vatsaya, Maturya, in this world or that world, in this world's all perverted reflections of the spiritual world, as described by Krishna in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, giving the example of the banyan tree. So it's just very interesting. So this bhaya is an anartha in this world, this fear, and it's caused by duality. So let me read the word by word synonyms. It's such an interesting verse. I haven't memorized it, but I know it, but I haven't memorized it because right now I'm not memorizing too many verses. It's harder when you get a little older. So dvitiya. So dvitiya means, you got the two. Dvi. You got it? Just like a form of Krishna we'd call dvibhuj, right? What does dvibhuj mean? Two arms. And then chaturabhuj is four arms. So dvitiya means something seeming to be other than the Lord. In other words, not seeing Krishna everywhere and in everything. And of course, in the Chatur Shloki, that's defined as illusion. Ritayratam na pratyeta chatmati tadvidyo atmana mayam yatabasha yatatamaha. That anything seen or without connection to Krishna is to be known as Krishna's illusory energy, which is like a reflection that appears in darkness. So it's very interesting. So when one sees things not connected to Krishna, then this material fear comes. But if you see things connected to Krishna, then it brings you closer. It's like if I'm anxiety about something to do with the temple, that brings me closer to Krishna. As long as it's not mixed with my false ego, my temple, like that. It's interesting, isn't it? How this fear can act in two ways. But anyway, so material fear. So dvitiya means there's something seeming to be other than the Lord. So it's interesting, seeming to be other than the Lord. Because it's not. Everything is connected to Krishna. Everything comes from Krishna. Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Everything is owned and controlled by Krishna. Hamsa Rasa Prabhu. Everything comes from Krishna. So, one sense, what is it? Chincha Beta Tapa philosophy. Everything is Krishna and not Krishna simultaneously. Something seeming to be other than Krishna. It's quite an interesting expression. You can give a whole class about that. seeming to be different than Krishna. And then abhinivesha ta means because absorption in seeing that thing different than Krishna. Ishat is just, it will arise. Ishat from the Supreme Lord. Apetasha, for one who is turned away. Wow. That's the same as Krishna Bharya-mukha. Turn your face away. In other words, we are here because we turned our face away from Krishna. And then we're looking at this other thing that appears to be not Krishna, but is Krishna. And that thing is putting us in anxiety because we're seeing it in an improper way. That thing exists. It's not false, but we're seeing it in a false way. And that's the same thing. Ritevatam napratiyata chatmani. Vipariyat. Misidentification. And then there's another word here, asmriti, which means forgetfulness or non-memory, right? Isn't that right? Smriti means to remember. Asmriti means a non-memory, not to remember. So that means at one point we actually understood these things. It's interesting, isn't it? Even this one verse proves the point that originally we were Krishna conscious living entities, and we are forgetting that everything is connected to Krishna. Krishna is everywhere. Was that Ishwara Sarvabhutanam Hridesha Arjuna Tishtati Ramayan Sarvabhutanam? Krishna is in everyone's heart. Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sanavishno Matak Smriti or Jnana Povanam Cha. We forget. Like that, and it just puts us in so much anxiety. Oh, if we remember, then we'll only have spiritual anxiety. And if we forget, then we have material anxiety, which takes us away. And then, of course, Tat of the Lord, don't have much time. Maya, by the illusory energy. Ta, therefore, Buddha, intelligent person, Abhajet, should worshipfully tam him, bhaktya, with devotion. Ekaya, unalloyed, Isham, the Lord, Guru Deva Ta Atma, one who sees his own spiritual master as his Lord and very self. So here's the very solution for overcoming material anxiety or fear. The verse number? It's a famous verse. 11:2:37. 11:2:37. Prabhupada quoted this verse quite often, although Prabhupada didn't do the commentary on this particular verse because this verse was. So let me read the whole translation. Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as a material body because of absorption in the external and illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he forgets, is that word forget, his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency for illusion called Maya. In other words, the person desires, but is carried out by Krishna's illusory energy. It's not caused by Krishna. Ultimate cause is not Krishna's illusory energy. The ultimate cause is your desire in this particular context. You called for Maya. Maya means, there's many definitions. Maya means mercy, means that which is not. But you're calling for something which is not. Does that make sense? You call for that, for forgetfulness. I mean, just like sometimes even, sometimes we may just like want to forget everything and just zone out. Or just like sink into blissful sleep. Right? If things are going, really bad, oh my God, at least I can go to sleep and forget it for a few minutes. So this is what we're doing. We're turning our face away from Krishna, and because of that, Krishna's put us into this blissful sleep. Not blissful, sorry. Into this sleep. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipful deity and as his very life and soul. So, anyway, so let's talk a little bit more. We have another 4 minutes. How to overcome this material anxiety. How to see Krishna everywhere and in everything. I mean, that's really the point. Not simply how to overcome anxiety, how to overcome fear, how to overcome dread, but to somehow or other, the solution is to see Krishna everywhere and everybody in everybody's heart. You know, there's some verses I already quoted, like Ishwara Sarvabhutanam, it's 1861, I believe. Ishwara Sarvabhutanam Hridesh Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantra Rudanimaya, which is actually really interesting in this regard. It's not only that Krishna is in everyone's heart, that's just the first point. Ishwara Sarvabhutanam Hridesh Arjuna Tishtati, that Ishwara, the Supreme Controller, is in everyone's heart. But then Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantra Rudani, everything is working according to his direction on this machine yantra of the material energy. So then everything is happening the way it's supposed to happen. Oh my God. If everything's happening the way it's supposed to happen, maybe I'm in the wrong movement. But anyway, so everything's happening the way it's supposed to happen. And it gives you this reassurance, you know, I'm getting old. You know, you look at yourself, one of the things that I experience is getting old. The rest of you don't experience this. But I experience getting old, and I just said, but it's supposed to happen like this. These aches and pains of the body. It's supposed to happen. Yantra Runani Maya. Krishna's arranged this different machine. Like when your car breaks down, planned obsolescence. It's supposed to happen. Isn't it? So anyway, so that really helps you become more peaceful. And then, of course, then the other verse I quoted before, Bhoktaram Jakatapasam, but especially Suridam Sarvabhutanam, that Krishna is your friend. So your friend is right there in your heart, right there in the holy names, right there in the service, right there in the association of devotees. And you're being protected, like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, as far as the surrendering principles or Sharanagati, middle two, that Krishna is always maintaining you, and Krishna is protecting you. And if Krishna protects you in a way that you don't like, that's Krishna. That's protecting you. You may not understand how it's protecting you, but it's still protecting you. And then other verses that actually help us maintain this is, actually I had some verses here from the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. 7:7 to 7:11 are actually really helpful as far as overcoming fear in this world. O conqueror of wealth, there's no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Isn't that so nice? You know, everything's resting on Krishna, just like pearls. You know, and I'm just looking at everyone here and thinking you're all like little pearls, and Krishna's just strung you all together. Yeah, everything. It's just, and then another thing, you know, they remember Krishna. Taste of water, the light of the sun. This is the 7-8. The sun of the moon, syllable om, sound and ether. That's Krishna. So Krishna's everything. He's the sound and ether. That the sound you're hearing is coming through ether. Ether means space. It actually exists, because if there's no space, then we'd be nose to nose. Yeah, I mean, there wouldn't be any space for a nose, but anyway. But if there wasn't any ether between us, there wouldn't be that. I mean, there's so many things. Krishna's the fragrance of the earth, the heat of fire, intelligence of the intelligent, strength of the strong. All these things are Krishna. So, anyway, I just want to end by saying sometimes it is very appropriate to be fearful in this world if it's related to Krishna. if it is related to our service to Krishna, then it's very appropriate to be fearful. It brings us to Krishna. But if I'm just looking at the mirror and thinking of my old age coming and feeling fearful, that's really not that appropriate at this particular point, especially as a sannyasi. So we have roughly 10 seconds left. Yeah. 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 Everything's giving us the opportunity to act appropriately. We have our own free will too. It's not that, okay, everything's supposed to happening the way it's supposed to happen, and I'm supposed to be in Maya. No, you have that ability to choose. But things discriminate, and act. You know, we can act. We can discriminate and act based upon that discrimination. But other things, we just don't have any control of. To a certain extent, yeah, we can take medicine and everything like that. I understand that. But ultimately, the medicine is coming from Krishna. As Prabhupada said, even in spite of the best doctors, best medical stuff, that if Krishna wants to kill you, he'll kill you in spite of, worse doctors or, prediction that you're going to die. If Krishna wants to save you, he'll save you. Okay, it's time. We're actually overdue. All glorious to
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Lasyan Dipan Dikayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham
Govinda, Adi Purusham. Namago Vishnu Pataya, Krishna Pistaya, Putale, Srimate, Bhakti Vedanta, Samaniti Namine. Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gurumani Vachar, Nege, Nivasesha, Shunyavati, Matsachagate, Satana Day. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nana Jaya Dvaita Gadada Siva Sade Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Gadada Siva Sade Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Gadada Siva Sade Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Gadada Siva Sade Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Ati Krishna Kate Krishna 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 Hare Ate Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Ate. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare, Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radha. Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radha. Radhe 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 Jai